Bobby, there is an orange and white cat. He is so cute. No, he's underneath it. Where you belong, baby? Where are you supposed to go? Well, he's walking away. And who's that? It's Dr. Pepper, of course. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Jamie, and today we are going over all of the books I read in March. March was a difficult month. Picked up a lot of books, but didn't really complete most of them. We're actually going to go over the honorable mentions of books that I got maybe a chapter or two into and just was not vibing with. But I think it was more of a me problem, or maybe I didn't like the format I had picked up. So I'm going to, at some point, maybe potentially try them again, different time, different place, different something. Let's do a quick run through of the potentially soft DNFs of the month of March. The Butcher of the Forest by Premi Muhammad. This is a novella. I believe it's under 200 pages, maybe even under 150. I can't remember exactly. And this is about a gothic fantasy, something like that, where there is a terrifying forest, and if you go in, you don't come out. Except one lady, when she was much younger, many, many years ago, went in to find some children and successfully returned with those children. So years and years later, she is asked by the tyrant king to rescue his children who have gotten lost in the forest. I really wanted to commit to this. It's a short book and it's been on my TBR, like my non-physical TBR, for a very long time. I felt as if I kept missing sentences. Like I would read a paragraph and I wasn't understanding it. It wasn't absorbing into my brain. And so I just assumed wrong place, wrong time, not enjoying this when it could be enjoyed. So I DNF'd it. Love at Second Sight by F.T. Lukens, I think is Lukens. Yeah. This is an urban fantasy mystery with like a little romance kind of. It's a contemporary YA book. And the whole point of it is that in this world, witches and werewolves and vampires and stuff, they're kind of looked down on. It's kind of like fantasy racism. And our main character, whose name I forget, this is going to be like the year of him and his best friend being like the top of their game. It's like their sophomore year, I think. And eventually he gets a vision of somebody being murdered. And then that's the whole mystery aspect of it. And he's supposed to be like discovering all of these clues and things while also like handling his crush on the werewolves. I didn't even get to the point where he has his vision. I stopped well before the actual inciting incident. I think it's more of a Halloweeny book, and I'll be more accepting of it during Halloween. The more I think about it, the more I wonder if I've ever liked an urban fantasy. I don't mind paranormal fantasies where there's like the real world or the mundane world, and then there's a secret society of fantasy creatures or witches or something, or like there's another world within our world. Those usually are fine, and there's a lot of overlap between urban fantasy and paranormal fantasy. Most things that are like described as urban fantasies just always have a source of humor that I'm not fond of. It's almost just like contemporary fiction or contemporary rom-coms, and then like the bartender's a zombie. OMG. I don't like that kind of humor, so I wasn't enjoying it. I am interested in it, and I would like to read it during the Halloween time. I don't read enough books about like fun Halloween stuff. I usually read like horror or like dark fantasy, so fun Halloweeny, paranormal fiction would be interesting. I already talked about The Weavers of Alamaxa, which was a whole thing in my last video. Alotsoe by Darcy Little Badger. I listened to it for like an hour and I still don't know the correct pronunciation, but this is another urban fantasy. I didn't really realize that, but the main character is a girl who can see dead things or recently deceased things or spirits, something of that matter, and she talks to her cousin's spirit like the night he is murdered, and she's supposed to go solve his murder, basically. Something was off. I've been wanting to read this book multiple times. I've even checked it out at the library like 2 or 3 years ago and just never got around to it. So I've attempted to read this a few times, and I just haven't. I don't know why. This one, I was listening to the audiobook. I had it on like double speed and it still felt so slow. I feel as if the narrator was really young, but it is supposed to be like middle grade YA. So I understand the narrator being a young sounding person, but I don't know. I just was not a fan of the narrator, sorry to say. Also, the pacing's a bit weird. She like talks to her cousin Spirit, learns this information, and then they go through some like fun adventure with spray paint and her friend's vampire friend, like his sister's vampire boyfriend. It's a whole thing. Again, another urban fantasy. Not sure if I've ever actually liked an urban fantasy, but I still try them. I still keep trying them. I don't know why. And then River of Spirits is another YA middle grade that I was trying to read. Don't even think I got through the first chapter. I just was like, I'm not in the mood for YA middle grade about the, I guess, underworld. So I put that on the back burner. The Wizard of Earthsea is another DNF. It is more of a hard DNF. I don't think I'm going to pick this one back up. This one is a fantasy written by Ursula K. Le Guin, who is like fantasy royalty. And it was written, I want to say, in the 60s. So it is a classic fantasy that has fundamentally shaped the genre. So I was like, I want to read more older classic fantasy. And like most people would start with Tolkien, I think, but I'm a little too intimidated by Tolkien. So it was like, oh, Ursula K. Le Guin, this like long running fantasy about the Wizard of Earthsea. I will 100% enjoy it. And I don't know why I didn't. I just really did not like the writing style. I feel like I see it a lot with classic fantasy where it's kind of just episodic. We followed this character, and it's a short book, but we followed them from the time they're like 10 to, I assume, older middle-aged adult. I didn't get that far in. I was skipping through though. I think I got about, oh, I didn't write down how far I got into it, but I got pretty far in before I just decided I wasn't interested in it. I will say it's episodic in a way that flows, like each episode pushes the character to the next one, but it is just like 1 or 2 pages per adventure. Not the kind of fantasy I'm interested in. I don't know. Just wasn't for me. I don't know if all of the other books in this series are like that or all of other Ursula K. Le Guin stories. I didn't like it, so I stopped reading it. Another DNF was Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. This is a book from my physical TBR. I pulled it from the spinny wheel and I was really excited about it. It is about 2 childhood friends who stop talking to each other and then many years later reunite and build a game together. And the whole book is supposed to be like their friendship and their lives together, you know, founding this company. And I really did not jive with the writing style. I can't even put my finger on it exactly on why. It was just such jarring writing style. It would like flip from one topic to another without any transition, and we were getting information that just didn't seem necessary. And also, it's written in third person omniscient, which I'm finding is probably my least favorite. I don't know what I hate so much about it, but like the shifting perspectives without clear delineation of whose perspective we're in. Books that transition per chapter from perspective or switch per chapter, those are fine. I've always loved those. But like one continuous story, maybe there's a paragraph break or like a page break and you're in somebody else's different perspective, doesn't make sense to me. Don't like it. And also, she would use that as an excuse to like get a third person perspective. I mean, they're all third person perspectives, but like an outsider looking in, because at one point somebody's in a hospital and the 2 other friends come to visit him. We get like a nurse's perspective, and she's explaining how like she likes to guess the relationship between the patients and the visitors and try and figure it out by herself. And then she starts explaining that it's very obvious so-and-so likes so-and-so, but it's not a sexual kind of like, it's just a platonic soulmate situation, but this person definitely has a crush on this person, and no, they're not lovers, but it was a whole thing. Like, why am I getting the nurse's perspective to like explain the friendship relationship dynamic that you're trying to set up? Why are you doing that? We had an age gap relationship that was meant to be creepy. Like, everyone's supposed to be kind of like side eyeing it. I hated reading about it. Why are we reading about this? I hated it. I really didn't like it. And like, it's supposed to be a bad decision. I don't begrudge it being in the story. Too much information about that guy, honestly. This I wouldn't mind picking up again if I had literally nothing else to read, because I was reading some of the reviews and somebody said that there's major character death, so that interested me. Who dies? I want to know that, but that's really all I wanted to know, and if that's all you want from the book, probably not a great book. Okay, anyway, those were all of my DNFs. Let's get into the books I actually read. It's up there and I don't want to grab it. Shady Hollow. This is a physical TBR book that I pulled from my spinny wheel by Juno Black, which I believe is the pen name for two authors co-writing this. I don't understand how co-writing works. I guess it's different for everyone, but that is conversation for a different day. Anyway, so this is a cozy mystery, which I know sounds like an oxymoron, but most mysteries that I enjoy happen to be cozy mysteries. The ones that are like thriller suspense mysteries usually just piss me off. I don't know why, but like cozy mysteries, it feels like watching different detective shows on the BBC with my mom. Like on a Saturday afternoon, she's got like BBC or Acorn TV on, and we're watching like, I don't know, a priest figure out the murders of this town that keep happening for whatever reason in this tiny town. Anyway, so I do have a soft spot for cozy mysteries. Now, this one interested me because it is about anthropomorphic animals. These animals are living, cohabitating in this small town. They all talk to each other, they wear clothes, they run businesses. And actually, there's an author's note at the beginning that's like, if you can't understand that this is fiction and that a moose and a mouse can talk to each other, then just pretend that they're humans with like mousy characteristics. But they are supposed to be animals, which I find very, very cute and very cheesy, and I loved it. It's a very small town where nothing happens. Like, there's no crime, everyone leaves their doors unlocked. Like, the police officer is usually out fishing because like nobody needs him. And then somebody dies, and he's this crotchety old toad, and everyone's like, I mean, he was kind of a jackass, but he didn't deserve to die. Like, who would do this to him? And we have a whole cast of characters who are kind of helping each other uncover mysteries and uncover the clues. Our main character really is Vera Vixen, who's a fox, and she's the reporter, sticking her nose in places because she can't leave any questions unanswered. And she, works with the deputy who really wants to be the sheriff, and yada yada. I don't know, with cozy mysteries, I'm not actively, well, with any mysteries, I'm not actively trying to figure it out. Usually I'm not sitting there like writing down the clues with them. I'm not a puzzle person. I don't like doing that kind of stuff. I'm not going to sit there and guess who did it halfway through. Like, I'm just being led through the story, and this was fun to be led through. It was very adorable, very cozy, very cute. I enjoyed it. Would love to see this on the stage. This, I feel like, just had the perfect feeling of a theatrical performance. I could 100% envision the actors up on the stage in their like little humanoid animal costumes. I could perfectly envision how it could be adapted to a stage play, and it was so fun to read because I was like, oh, this character would come from that stage, and then we could like condense these characters together. Like, my whole brain was adapting it as I was reading it, and it was so fun. Anyway, this is the start of a series, so I'll be reading the rest of the books in the series. The one thing I would critique is that there were a lot of scenes where a character or multiple characters would travel to a location, say like two things, and then move to a different location. So I wish those were reduced, but you could reduce those in your theatrical adaptation. That's what I mean, is like, I was condensing scenes together to like make it fit an hour-long theater production. Anyway, not the point. That's another video. Okay, The Holdout by Jeffrey Kluger. This was the book, the physical book I had on my TBR the longest. I think I bought it 2 or 3 years ago from the Dollar Tree. It is a Dollar Tree book review, and I finally read it, and it was fine. It was like 3 stars. Point of the book is that we're in the International Space Station. Something happens, and they have to evacuate immediately. And one character, I forget her name already. Beckon? No, not Beckon. Belka. Wally, that's what she goes by. She goes by Wally, right? She decides to not leave the International Space Station. It is compromised, that's why they had to evacuate, but it is survivable. And so she weighs her options and she says, I'm staying on out of protest. So she has all eyes on her, the whole world, the governments are paying attention to her now too. And she says, I'm doing this because there is an evil bad guy corporation that is tearing down the Amazon. And you guys need to do something about it. And I'm not going to come down unless you do. The book really is what it says on the tin. There's nothing really else that happens. I mean, we get information about the Amazon. We have a person on land there that we're following. It was labeled as a suspense. I wouldn't consider it suspenseful. At one point, she goes on a spacewalk. Other than that, it's kind of boring. Very Martian-esque. Like, the things I liked about The Martian were in this when it comes to like that dry humor, which I guess must be an astronaut thing. It's also very beige prose. It's not a prose focused book. It's not very poetic. They said it's a character focused book. I wouldn't even call it character focused. We don't really get that much insight into Wally or I forget the other girl's name, them as characters, other than to tell us that they're like good people. I bought it for $1.25 years ago. I don't think I'm going to be keeping it. It will probably be a book I give to the little free library. That was it. I finally read it. I didn't hate it. I wouldn't recommend it though, unless you're like into dry books about space. The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. I read this for book club. The only reason I would have picked it up, I am allergic to popular books. It's one of the most popular things. The movie also came out like recently, so I wasn't gonna pick it up. And then they were like, "This can be our book club book," and I read it, and I was like, "Oh, I enjoyed it." And then we were talking about it in book club, and I was like, "Oh, you guys are right. It didn't make sense." The entire time I was just kind of passively listening to it, just like I said, being taken for the ride. I'm not trying to sit there and guess who's doing it. I'm not trying to guess the mystery. The book is about Millie. That's her name. Millie has just gotten out of jail and gets a live-in housemaid position. And immediately things are kind of off. The mother, the wife character, Nina is her name, is not all the way there. She keeps telling Millie to do something. When Millie does it, she turns around and she's like, "What? I never told you to do that. Stop it." She like accuses Millie of doing things that she never did. She's kind of ugly. She's fat. Everyone keeps talking about how she's crazy. And Millie just has a huge disdain for her. And then all the way through, about halfway, maybe a little bit more through the book, and then we get Nina's perspective, and everything is supposed to turn topsy-turvy, and you learn, like, actually, Nina is this way instead of that way, blah, 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 blah. We get more information. I'm trying not to spoil it. The entire time things were being told to me, I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And then I was sitting in book club, and people were being like, you know, she just got out of prison. Why would she ever feel comfortable sitting in a room that locks on the outside? And then they were talking about how, like, by the time this thing happens, we applaud it because we know the backstory and the context of how bad that thing is. But Millie didn't know that shit. All that's happened to her is like a very small indiscretion or something, like a very small inconvenience. So it just like doesn't, I'm trying to be vague, but it's not, things aren't making sense. And the only reason it makes sense is because you as the reader have more information than the characters in the scene. It doesn't really make sense, but again, it is just a mystery thriller that's supposed to be fun to read, and it was fun to read, but I don't think I would go out of my way to read more Frida McFadden. Like I said, it really only makes sense when you know both timelines, both character perspectives, and you've seen what's going on. But if you were a character in that scene at that moment with the information that they have, there's no way they would have pieced things together. And some things seem disproportionate. Some things kind of just seem to work out on their own. Like, if you told me it says gullible on the ceiling, I would just believe you. That's how I am with these mystery thriller books. Like, I just believe the author when she says things. The Appointment by Katarina Vlokmer, I think is how you say it. I started this book last year. I've talked about this a couple times now. I think February is when I started it last year. And I had to stop because it was just putting me in a slump. It's just a block of text. You hear this character's horrible inner monologue of like all of her deepest, darkest, kind of crass thoughts. And like, she's German. And so she's got all this like stuff about Germany and German history and certain things. It's not fun to read. I only have 60 pages left. At some point I'm gonna have to pick it back up and finish it, and I'm glad I did, because I actually kind of enjoyed at least the last part. I think part of it was February last year, 2025, was just difficult for me. I had just moved. I was still getting used to things. I felt like I was kind of in fight or flight for most of the year. It wasn't until very recently that I've kind of settled in, and that's why I'm having such a better experience with these books that I'm picking up. We follow an unnamed narrator at a doctor's appointment, and over time, you realize that it is bottom surgery, or I guess a consultation for bottom surgery, as this person transitions from female to male. This character starts waxing about their identity, their queerness, the choices they've made in their lives, their identity as a German living in London, as a German feeling this complete and utter shame for their family history because they know their grandpa was a Nazi. And they talk about it as like they're in London and they're talking about how these people don't have that shame of their family history or their country's history. Most of the time I was reading it and I was like, okay, it's like the most crass thing you can think of. We're talking about like some really dark humor. And then there would be one line that encompassed a thought that I've had myself and could never verbalize, of like identity or of love or of being a woman in society or not feeling comfortable as a woman in society and all of these things. And it's like, oh wow, I've never been able to put my finger on that thought and say it make sense. And every so often we would just have these kind of tidbits, these little nuggets of beautiful understanding of the world and psychology. I don't know, all of these things that were happening, but it's stuck in between these really horrific ideas, like the deepest, darkest thoughts anyone could have. And for most people, I think it would be a little too crass to read. I keep saying crass, that's the only word I can think of, but it's like a little too, lowbrow. We talk about very offensive topics. And I think that part of that is just that it's absurdism. And a part of that is that the author is trying to shock you. But other than that, pretty okay. Pretty okay book. Next is Squire by Nadia Shamas and Sarah Al-Faghi. This is a graphic novel. I think it's the first of the year, which is amazing. This is one of those thick, chunky graphic novels. So it's just one volume. And I love those, but they do have their problems. We'll get into it. Squire is this Middle Eastern inspired story. It is about, did I write her name? I think it's Isa. Yeah, Isa, who is from a clan or a race or a group of people that are considered second class. They've been subjugated by this empire. They are discriminated against. But she wants nothing more than to be a squire, like a knight in this army, this society fighting for the empire. So she finally joins the recruitment and learns to be a squire. Only a select few get selected. If you're not selected, you just go into the infantry at the front lines. It's not a great system. She works really hard. She meets these wonderful friends. And at some point, she is tested. And that kind of shifts her perspective on war, and this is kind of like an anti-war, anti-violence narrative. My problem with this is that, and I don't think there's a solution, but when you have these big chunky graphic novels, the pacing never seems right. She's been wanting this her entire life. She works so hard. She puts blood, sweat, and tears into this, and then one thing happens and she completely flip flops. I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily, but it is like, oh, you know, we got to the 60% mark and now we have to wrap this shit up. Let's just do one thing. They all learn their perfect life lessons and, you know, end the story. I don't think the solution is make it multi novels or multi volumes. I don't think the solution is making it longer. I don't know what the solution would be. But every time I've read a graphic novel, especially ones that are supposed to be like one volume and, you know, are just really thick, it's always like that. We get to a certain point, one thing happens, the character has a crisis of faith or a crisis of character, and then we wrap it up and happily ever after. And I don't know how else to explain that. Oh my god. The Unmothers, I forgot about this. By Leslie J. Anderson. This one was great. This one was really, really great. I've had this on my TBR for a while. I would listen to it. It is a Appalachian horror. I think it's supposed to be in the South. A reporter is drawn out into a community, very secluded southern, I think southern, yeah, a very secluded rural community that is like their main source of income is horses. Like they buy, sell, trade, train, show horses. Everybody's into horses, right? Oh my god. She's brought out to this town because it's reported that a horse gave birth to a baby human. And so she's like, is this some kind of hoax? Is this some like joke that they're pulling on to get like notoriety? What's going on? Now, the reporter has her own issues. She's recently lost her husband. And on top of that, right after she lost her husband, she found out that she was pregnant and also having a miscarriage at the same time. She never told her husband that she was pregnant. And then he died. And then she also had the miscarriage. And so she's grieving not only her husband's death, but also this like idea that she should be upset about losing the child as well. But she's not, and that's like a conflicting emotion. And then she's sent out to this place where there's like a mysterious baby. This book took me like a full 24 hours to process because I was listening to it, I was taking it in, I ended the book, and then like 24 hours later, I was on the floor sobbing about what this book represents, what it means, because we know with horror, at least with well done horror, it never is just a monster. The monster means something else. The monster is something. Oh, I'm getting emotional thinking about it. Oh my god. Okay, let me try and explain this. I guess this kind of does spoil everything, but what this book is about is obviously not just the monster. It's obviously not about a horse giving birth to a person. It is about reproductive rights and bodily autonomy for women. At first, I was like, oh, okay, so like you have to give up one life for another, blah, 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 blah. And then I sat there and I was like, no, no, this isn't about like demonizing abortion or anything. This is truly about women who are pushed to desperate ends. They were given no other option. They had everything stripped from them. They had to resort to this in order to preserve themselves. And it just, you know, is a very topical situation when Roe v. Wade has been overturned. People are getting persecuted for literally having miscarriages, literally having normal, natural miscarriages. Besides that beautiful message and what it was trying to convey, I loved the horse girl representation. There are just chapters, just like certain passages that felt so relatable to me of a woman who trains horses and gives lessons explaining why horse girls are the way that they are and why they love horses so much and what it feels like to be a little girl in love with horses. I love that part of it, obviously, and what horses mean to her. The one thing I would critique is that I wish the community aspect of women was brought to the forefront sooner, because we get about like 85% of the way through the book and suddenly all these women are coming together to like help the person in need. And that's when I was like, oh, that's what the whole book's been about. Oh, I get it now. I feel as if we could have just brought that to the forefront a bit sooner. It would have made the book feel a bit more cohesive, because it does feel as if at the end, suddenly every woman cares. And that wasn't the vibe I was getting before. That was The Unmothers. I really enjoyed it. I really loved it. And I think everyone should read it. It was really great. Okay, last I read The Ballad of Songbirds and Bakes. Last I read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. This is the prequel to The Hunger Games, and it is the story of President Snow and kind of his involvement with the Hunger Games before he becomes President Snow as a teenager, when he meets Lucy Gray Baird, a Covey girl from District 12 who becomes one of the tributes, and her mentor. I had no interest in reading this book for a while. When it first came out, I was not interested in the Hunger Games. I mean, I read them, but I wasn't like interested in them as a fan anymore. I was like, I've outgrown the Hunger Games. And then I saw a lot of reviews that were like, this is just trying to give Snow a sad backstory to excuse his actions. Like, he's literally a fascist dictator. Like, why are we trying to give him a sad backstory and say he was just a scorned man, blah blah blah. So then that made me turn away from it. And then I watched the movie, and I liked the movie. I did enjoy it, but I was like, oh, okay, I've gotten all of the information I need from it. When I was doing my Hunger Games read through last year in order to read Sunrise on the Reaping, too many names, oh my god, to read Sunrise on the Reaping, I had it on hold, but obviously everyone's trying to reread the entire series in preparation for Sunrise on the Reaping. So it didn't get to me fast enough, and I was like, you know what, I don't care. And then all of a sudden, in March, it was just available for me to borrow. So I was like, whatever, let me listen to it while I do my work. And I'm so glad I did, because I think this might be my favorite Hunger Games book. I think it might truly, honestly be the best one, and definitely my favorite. Probably the most eye-opening about the Hunger Games series. And all I have to say is, if you were the person who left a review or said that this book was just giving Snow a bad backstory to like excuse his actions or make him sympathetic, you did not understand the book. I'm talking to you. You did not understand the book. You were not engaging with this book correctly. I'm sorry. I know, death of the author, reader intent, blah, 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 whatever. You were not understanding. They make it absolutely clear what this book is about. This book is not about giving Coriolanus Snow, a sympathetic backstory. This was not making him a tragic villain. This was not his villain origin story. He was a villain the whole time, babes. Bestie, he was a villain the whole time. I think the biggest thing to take from this book and to apply to your own life, and what I love about this book, is that Snow was raised by the Capitol, which before him was already like this huge propaganda machine, this huge this huge capital superiority machine, right? Trying to divide the capital people from the district people and keep the capital on top. Before Snow, that was already a thing that was going on. Snow was given several opportunities to question that, and he got so close. He was given several moments where he was like, it's so unfair that I'm being treated like these district people when I'm capital. Why would they treat me like this when I'm a capital person? Why are the districts treated so badly? I guess it's just because, this one person sucks and not the system. He turns away from every opportunity to question the capital propaganda, to question the system that is subjugating not only the districts, but him himself. But instead of questioning the system, instead of understanding that this is harming everyone and is a horrible system, he just goes, well, I'm being mistreated and I don't deserve that. It's so in line with his character, but it's also like, there are so many people, especially nowadays, who lick the boot that steps on them. They are given the opportunity to question the boot that is crushing them. They go, well, the boot is only crushing me because of people like you, and I don't deserve it. the boot should actually just be crushing you. And you can question them, you can give them so many opportunities to learn why the boot is crushing them and how it's not our fault, it's this guy's fault, the owner of the boot, and they will still lick the fucking boot. I don't know if this metaphor is going on for too long, but like that was such an eye-opening perspective to see it from that person's perspective. To see Snow sit there and parse through this question. At some point, Lucy Gray even asks him, "Why do you think it's fair that the Capitol is doing this to us?" And he just like can't answer. And yet he turns away and just goes, "No, the system is just. I've just been, subjugated for no reason. And all I have to do is rise to the top." It's so chilling. It's absolutely chilling to read. And I enjoyed it so much. Also, part of this I think is because I watched the movie. So I got to see Rachel Zegler and whatever the fucking guy's name is, their beautiful chemistry on screen. And when I was reading the scenes with Lucy Gray and Snow, I had to keep reminding myself that it wasn't good. There were several times because Snow is so charismatic and Lucy is so vulnerable and trusting of him. There were so many times where I was like, "Oh, I just hope that they like get together and they just have a nice." No, no, he's gonna hurt her. He's hurting her right now. He's being super creepy and possessive of her. Like I had to keep reminding myself of that. I wanted it to work out, and I think that's how well written this is, that I was even tricked. Well, maybe I'm just gullible, but I was even tricked by Snow, and I was sitting there going like, "Oh, I hope they can work it out." No, they can't, girl. What are you talking about? He's literally President Snow. Anyway, I loved this book. I wish I had read it sooner, but honestly, books come into your life when you need them. You read them when you need it. And I think at this point in my life, I understood what Suzanne was saying. I think if I had read it when it first came out, I might have been the kind of person that was like, "Oh, she's just trying to make Snow a sympathetic villain." No, no, she was not. That was all the books that I picked up and put down in March. Already it's almost halfway through April. Hopefully I don't put this off with editing and stuff but till the very end of the month again, but I don't know, probably will. Anyway, that's going to be it for me. If you enjoyed my thoughts on these books, please like and subscribe. If you wanted to add your input and thoughts on these books, please comment down below. I'm trying to do those like call to actions that everyone does. The sun is setting, my lighting is going out. Oh my god. Anyway, that's going to be it for me. Okay, bye.